It looks like City Leagues have started up back in Japan, and of course they are on the Mega Evolution format, which means that we have some new decks to look at, and we get to kind of see what the meta looks like ahead of time. Obviously in the States and everywhere else in the world, we do not have the Mega Evolution set, but pre-releases start this weekend, so we're kind of going to get a dive into the next format here, and luckily we have some lists and things like that to look at from Japan. Shout out to OmniJoe, big YouTuber that put this together right here. He always does this for like the City League results, so definitely go check his channel out. But he went ahead and kind of organized here based on the results. I think it was like 50 different tournaments, 50 different City Leagues. These were kind of all the results kind of tallied up on a point system here, just to kind of show what it is that's winning in Japan. Obviously we have Dragapult at the top, followed by Charizard and also Goldango. Well, actually not Charizard, sorry, it's a Dragapult Charizard. So that, like in the green right there, you see the Dragapult. So it's like Dragapult, Dragapult Dusknoir, Dragapult Charizard. So it's kind of like all the different variants. Same with Goldango as well. So basically Dragapult and Goldango are at the top, no surprises there, followed by Raging Bolt, Grimmsnarl, and Gardevoir. After that is Charizard and Mega Lucario, which we're going to kind of take a look into, and then after that we kind of have everything else as well. So obviously the top decks right now in our formats are still doing very well in Japan. Obviously they get some new cards like Lilies, which are going to help the decks even more, but we are starting to see some new decks pop up here, like the Mega Lucario, the Alakazam, which I think is an interesting one, and we kind of get to see how Megas are utilized in the existing decks right now. So today what I want to do is kind of look at some of these lists here from Japan, kind of talk about I guess how the decks work, or how, like, what the concepts are here, and just kind of show what it is that's, you know, working in Japan right now. So if you guys enjoy this video, make sure you let me know in the comments below, but let's go ahead and take a look at some of these results. So as I mentioned, there were a lot of different tournaments over the past couple of days. What's interesting here right off the bat, just kind of looking at this page, it doesn't seem like Dragapult has won a whole lot of these. It's kind of more so Dragapult does consistently well. But I'm kind of seeing more variations as far as like what's winning. I see some Grimmsnarl, I see some Gardevoir, I see some kind of more rogue decks. Dragapult Blaziken is an interesting one. I've never seen that before. So let's just go ahead and click through some of these. I kind of want to go through some of the more interesting decks, and I also want to kind of see like how Megas are being utilized. What I will say is I kind of looked through this a little bit ahead of time. I didn't see a whole lot of Mega Venusaur, which I'm very sad about, but I'm also not too surprised about. So yeah, I'm really interested in this Alakazam deck, so we're going to talk about that in just a moment. But right here at the top, we do have a Gardevoir Jellicent. Obviously in this new set, we are getting the new Ralts and the new Curlia, the more optimal ones here. And obviously they're better because Curlia has that ability to search out for more Pokemon with the call sign here. Search your deck for up to 3 Pokemon, reveal them, and put them into your hand. So obviously more beneficial than what we have now. Same with the Ralts, you're able to just draw an extra card, which is pretty much always good. So obviously very good for that. And then obviously we do have the Lily's Determination as well. So with this card, you're able to basically shuffle your hand into your deck and draw 8 cards. If you've taken any prize cards, you draw 6 instead. So either way, still really good draw power. It's going to be a card that's very good for a lot of decks, especially like Dragapult. So I'm very excited for that. Aside from that, this is a pretty standard build. We do have the Jellicent version of this deck, which I think is still pretty good. Some people say it's more clunky, but I mean, now that we have Lilies, it might make it a little bit better. I don't know. So very interesting right there. I'm going to click on Dragapult real quick. I'm not going to click through every Gardevoir and Dragapult because we know what that is, right? I just want to click on a couple examples here just because it is a new format. So obviously Dragapult Dusknoir. We've got the Lilies, like I said. That's pretty much going to replace Research from what I've seen. This one's still running 2 copies of Research, but it's just going to be really good draw power for you, and it just makes a lot of sense. This one's kind of running heavy on the Psychic Energies with 3 and only 1 Luminous, so that's kind of an interesting option here. And we do see a Shaman in this build, which kind of makes sense because on that little meta share list, I did see some Terrabox on there. I saw some more Grimmsnarl, so I could see the Shaman making sense to kind of play that. It's one of those like meta calls where, you know, sometimes decks are playing Shaman, sometimes they're not, so kind of seems like that's all it really is here. And then this version is also playing a couple of tool cards, which we haven't really seen as much of. What I've also noticed in Japan with a lot of these Dragapult lists, now that we're playing Lilies instead of you know, heavy research. A lot of them are opting for the rare candy again, so kind of like a faster version. So I think it's going to be really interesting to kind of see that shift, to be able to kind of power up a Dragapult like turn 2. So I'm kind of excited to test that and kind of see how that works. The last really big meta deck, of course, is Goldango, so let's look at a build of that. And this one is kind of the more straightforward build with like the Caesar, no prize card shenanigans. This one's not really playing any kind of new cards that I can see. Looks pretty standard overall. I don't think Goldango really gets a whole lot in the mega set. I just think that it's just a good pick moving forward, just because of some of the stuff that other decks are getting. I do think that a deck like Goldango, where you're able to hit for crazy numbers, is going to be very good. So yeah, I do think it's going to get a lot better, honestly. Outside of that, let's look into some of the more, you know, new decks here. So for example, we got the Lucario, Mega Lucario. If you guys don't know what this does, it basically just hits pretty hard. So it hits for 270. It also has a move that hits for 130, where you're able to accelerate energies. I'll go ahead and pull up the proxy real quick so you guys can see it. So it's got, yeah, Aura Jab, 130. You get to attach up to 3 basic fighting energy from your discard pile to your benched Pokemon in any way that you like. You also have Mega Brave, 270. During your next turn, you cannot attack with this. So a lot of these decks are running the Mega Lucario with the Hariyama, which basically when you evolve it, you're able to switch your opponent's active Pokemon with one of their bench Pokemon. So like a gusting option, like a boss's orders. But it also has a solid attack for 210. You do 70 to yourself, which is okay because you're a single prizer. So you're still left with what, 80 HP. So it still kind of makes it difficult to like Monkey Dory and knock it out, or like Phantom Dive and knock it out with the extra damage. So you're still left with enough HP to where it doesn't really affect you that much. And it's just a really strong, you know, single prize attacker that also has the Gust ability. The other 2 Pokemon that we see in these fighting decks with Mega Lucario are the Solrock and Lunatone, which pair together nicely. Lunatone, its ability only works if you have a Solrock in play, but you basically get to discard a fighting energy and draw 3, so really good draw option. And then we also have the Solrock here, which is kind of like a Rotom fan, but you know, you just do 70 damage, so just kind of a solid, you know, early game attacker with just a 1 retreat cost, which is not too bad at all. The other thing with these fighting decks is that they're playing both of these cards right here, Premium Pro Power, so your fighting Pokemon do 30 more damage during your turn. So instead of hitting for 270, we could be hitting for 300 or more than that if we play more of these. The other card right here is the Fighting Gong. We can just search our deck for a basic fighting Pokemon and a basic fighting energy and put it into our hand. So again, just a really good search option. So this deck right here, it's like pretty straightforward, but it's pretty powerful. I think, you know, you have a stage 1 Mega Evolution with 340 HP that hits pretty hard, that can also accelerate energies to your bench. You've got single prizers that can attack and gust Pokemon, and then you play, you know, a bunch of supporters with the Lilies, you know, the boss's orders, the research, the Ionos. This build's also playing the Gravity Mountain. So again, really good for some of these mega Pokemon that are going to have way more HP now, just to kind of hit those higher numbers. You're also playing the Maximum Belt in this deck, so that's pretty cool too. Again, just to hit the higher numbers, it makes sense. You can also go like Maximum Belt on Hariyama, and suddenly you're hitting for 260, so just honestly really good. I think that this is going to be a strong deck. It feels pretty straightforward for the most part, but I do think that this is like the Mega Evolution in the next set that's going to actually have the potential to like be its own deck. All the other Megas, we're kind of seeing them added on to existing decks or just not played at all. I do think that Mega Lucario is probably going to have the most potential as far as like its own standalone deck. So that's kind of what we're seeing right now. Yeah, even in the meta share right here, you know, we see it kind of in that B tier, so right behind Charizard. So yeah. Very cool deck. The other really cool deck that I've been seeing is the Alakazam deck. This is a really interesting one, and if you're going to any pre-releases, I highly recommend checking this out because this is one of the promo cards here. So basically, with this deck, its attack, you do 20 damage counters for every card in your hand. So basically, you want to draw a bunch of cards, because the more cards you have in your hand, the more damage that you're doing. Kind of similar to like the Tinkaton. I think it's the Tinkaton EX. Yeah, you do 30 damage for each card in your hand, so just basically the same thing in the EX form of it. And basically, you play this with the Dudunsparce, which allows you to shuffle that Pokemon into your deck and draw 3 cards. You also play the Enriching Energy, because when you attach this from your hand to a Pokemon, you draw 4 cards. You attach that to the Dudunsparce, and you shuffle it back into your deck. Then basically you keep shuffling this energy back into your deck, and you're constantly drawing more cards. It's a really interesting deck, I will say. Is it good? I don't know that it's really good, but I do think it's very interesting. I think it has potential, like kind of as a meme deck. I mean, it's no worse than a deck like, you know, I don't know, Cerulege or Typhlosion. Like, it's one of those decks where it's not like a top deck, but it's definitely a viable deck. So if you play it to like a, you know, local league challenge or something, you've got a legitimate shot at winning. So I do think that's a pretty interesting deck. But yeah, like I said, you basically do 20 damage counters for each card in your hand. You also have the ability Psychic Draw. So whenever you play this Pokemon from your hand to evolve, you get to draw 3 more cards. You're just constantly drawing cards and trying to get as many cards in your hand as possible. That way you can do as much damage as you need to. So a really cool deck overall. And I do think that it's got potential. It's not going to be great, but it's got potential, right? Let's go ahead and check out another City League. I'm kind of looking at the same one right here, so I want to click through a few of these. Right here we have the Archaludon. From what I've seen, a lot of them are playing at Mega Mawile, which we see right here. So with the Mawile, you've got the Greedily Devour attack, 80 damage for each prize card that you have taken. You've also got Big Bite for 260. If your opponent's active Pokemon has any damage on it, then it only does 30 damage instead. So really, you're kind of using it for the Greedily Devour. As you kind of take more prize cards, you're doing way more damage, which is kind of nice. So maybe we'll see kind of a return with Archaludon, a card that really kind of fell off. We don't really see this deck too much anymore, but I think it's still pretty good. I just think that right now in the meta, it doesn't really have a place. I don't really know that the Mega Mawile like changes that much for this deck, because I'm really not seeing much else. So I think it makes this deck better, but it doesn't make the deck good, if that makes sense. So we are seeing that there. Got a couple Slowkings right here, which is kind of a funny deck. One thing I've seen too in some of these builds, let me go back to this one. Maybe not. I saw it earlier, but we are starting to see a little bit of the Mega Kangaskhan in some of these Raging Bolt lists, which a lot of people kind of talked about. Yeah, like right here. Basically, you know, a basic Pokemon with the ability to draw cards when it's in the active spot. So you kind of have this as a pivot tool in a deck where you're already playing Area 0. You kind of just bench it. You already have 2 prizers and everything across your board anyways. So obviously in matchups to where your Kangaskhan can't get one-shotted, you kind of just put this guy down, and anytime you have to pivot or something gets knocked out or whatever, you just put this in the active spot, draw some extra cards, and then you use Latias to go ahead and retreat into your attacker. So we are seeing Mega Kangaskhan played, mostly in Raging Bolt. It makes a lot of sense, but that's kind of mostly where we're seeing the Kangaskhan being played. So aside from that, nothing really new in Raging Bolt. That's pretty much the only main addition that I've seen. So yeah, we've got that. Down here at the very bottom of the results, we've got the Meganium, not even playing the Venusaur. We're kind of just seeing it as like a Teal Mask deck with some of the other ogres here. So again, I don't see a lot of Mega Venusaur. If there is Mega Venusaur, it's not doing great. So I'm kind of sad about that, but not really surprised. We've also got some Manectric here, which is kind of just that, you know, lightning kind of box, Miraidon kind of deck. This is a card that I know some people were pretty excited for, but a lot of people don't think it's going to be great. It does 120 damage with the Flash Ray. During your opponent's next turn, prevent all damage done to this Pokemon by attacks from your opponent's basic Pokemon. So it can be very good against stuff like Raging Bolt, for example. Also got Riot Blaster, which does 200 plus 130 more if you discard all energy from the Pokemon. So overall, pretty good card, not gonna lie. The question is, how does it shape up against everything else? And again, right now, I'm kind of seeing Mega Lucario as the best option for its own like solidified deck. This is kind of something that you kind of throw in with a deck like, you know, Miraidon or maybe even like a Joltik. I feel like the Miraidon build's better with Electric Generator, just because you're constantly kind of getting rid of energies. With Joltik, you have to waste a turn to power yourself up. So yeah, it kind of makes more sense to play with Miraidon like this. And then you still have these other options like Iron Hands and stuff like that. So overall, really good option, I guess. Going down a bit further, we do have our first Slowking win. This is exciting. This is a deck that it's a meme deck, I'm not gonna lie. It doesn't even have anything new here. It's just they're playing Slowking. I guess it's got lilies, that's about it. But yeah, this is an interesting deck. It's not really a good deck, but I mean, again, if you play it at a challenge, you'll probably win. Just a deck where you basically want to use cards like Cypher Maniac or Academy at Night to put certain Pokemon at the top of your deck. That way you can copy their attacks with Slowking. So you've got all these different types of attackers where you can, you know, basically use whatever you need to for the matchup. So not really a serious deck, but a deck that managed to win a City League, apparently. We do have a Venusaur, so that's exciting. I'm very excited for Venusaur. I don't think it's going to be very good, but I'm a big Venusaur fan. I'm very sad because LAIC has all the Venusaur merch, which I will not be going to, which means I'm probably going to be stuck with like Charizard merch for NAIC, so I'm kind of sad about that. But yeah, you got the Solar Trans ability. You get to move grass type Pokemon, or sorry, grass type energies around. And basically you got Jungle Dump for 240, and you get to heal 30 damage from your Pokemon. You know, in theory, it's a good attack. It's a, you know, healing kind of tank deck. But when you're in a format with a lot of fire type attackers, in a format where you've got cards like Goldango, which don't really cap out on damage, makes it kind of tough, you know, especially when you're a 3-prizer. So I don't think it's going to be very good. I am excited to see it, but yeah, we're kind of seeing it with the Meganium, which makes sense. The Force of Vitality, so you can quickly evolve. So yeah, it all makes sense here, but I don't think it's gonna be very good, honestly. Looking down a little bit further, we have some classic fan favorites here, like the Roaring Moon. Getting basically nothing new here, just pretty straightforward. Roaring Moon to Dunsparce. We've got Garchomp here, a deck that some people have kind of thought it's going to get better as time goes on. We've kind of yet to see that, but it is, you know, a solid archetype, I guess, and it does get some support in this next set with all the fighting type stuff, the Premium Power Pro, the Fighting Gong, the Lily's Determination. So I could see it getting better now that it has some more support, so that'll be interesting to kind of see. In 9th place here, we do have a Feraligatr with Blaziken. That's kind of cool. This deck is dead, I'm not gonna lie. Like, back it up. It had its one insane run. After that, we've seen nothing out of Feraligatr, so I'm not even gonna look into that. We've also got some Zoroark. This is a deck I've kind of been playing more, honestly. It just kind of interests me now. Like, I never really understood how this deck could be good, but now I'm kind of seeing it, and I do think it has potential. So again, going to be interesting to see how it is moving forward. We do have the Yveltal, and if you're looking at this card, you don't know what it does. It's just 20 damage, your opponent can't retreat. We've got tons of those cards, these retreat locking cards. So this is just the dark type version of it, but yeah, that's basically all it is. I do also want to click into one of these Grimmsnarl lists, just to kind of see. I didn't do that earlier. Yeah, I was gonna say, I haven't seen too much of the Psyduck, but it makes sense in a deck like this. I was kind of like, what decks are gonna play Psyduck? But yeah, this makes sense to play it in a deck like Grimmsnarl. And same thing, you got Lily's Determination, just to kind of, you know, make the deck more consistent. Aside from that, nothing else that's really new, but we are seeing the Psyduck, we're seeing the Lilies, so it's gonna be interesting to see how Dragapult responds to the Psyduck. I personally don't think Psyduck's gonna be that crazy against Dragapult. You know, all it is really a Phantom Dive and a Hawlucha away. You Iono your opponent or something like that, and you know, it kind of takes more time to set up the Psyduck again. So I do think it's gonna be one of those cards where like you put it down right before you see the Dragapult players about to pop off, to kind of prevent those big turns from happening. But I don't think it's gonna like destroy Dusknoir or anything like that. But yeah, overall, those are kind of like the more popular decks, and some interesting picks. A lot of these decks, like I said, the main card they're getting is Lily's Determination. So my recommendation is, if you go to any pre-releases, if you buy any cards early, buy lots of this card, because this card is going to go up in price probably gonna be like an Arvin where it's, you know, crazy numbers for a supporter card. So I highly recommend picking up your Lily's Determination. It's gonna be good in pretty much every deck. And aside from that, you know, I think the big takeaway here is Mega Lucario is got enough to be its own deck and actually be a pretty solid deck. Mega Venusaur, unfortunately, is probably not going to be very good. And then we do have other cards like Mega Kangaskhan, which you can kind of splash into decks like Raging Bolts. We do see some support options for some different decks. We see some new decks with stuff like Alakazam, which are going to be interesting. So yeah, overall, really cool to see these results. Highly recommend checking them out on Limitless TCG. You'll see all the results there for the City Leagues, just to kind of keep up with the meta ahead of time before we get the cards. So yeah, I'm very excited for the new sets. Let me know in the comments if you guys are attending any pre-releases. And yeah, thanks for watching the video. Hope you guys enjoyed it, and I'll catch you in the next one.